there's some of you out there who have just a little bit of whimsy in you. Hi, I'm Heidi from Garden Crossings, and today we are going to veer from the traditional porch pots, and we're going to do a beautiful evergreen winter gnome. This is something perfect for the holidays to set out on your front porch. So in doing so, some of the supplies that we're using here is a tomato cage. Now, this is something that we have had here at the garden center and have found that it works really well, but unfortunately they don't make these anymore. So once these are gone, they're gone. So if you would like to sign up for our gnome porch pot parties, there are limited spots available. So we'll put a link below so you can get signed up if this is something that interests you. But other things you could use is if you have just a short tomato cage, those metal tomato cages, that would work just as well for what we're doing here today. So the greens that I like to use, we have some blue spruce, which is nice because it's very kind of wide and broad. So it fills in a lot of area when we're making these gnome planters. Also, we like to use some fir, which again is another fairly wide and dense looking evergreen that fills in these gnomes really well. So I personally kind of like the look of this evergreen just a little bit better than this one. So I'm going to put this as like the top layer, and I'll be using the blue spruce more as a bottom layer. And who knows, as I go, I might find myself alternating them as well. That's kind of the fun thing when you're creating, is you have the ability to just kind of go with the flow and do what looks best at the time. So what we're going to need is twist ties, or if you have paddle wire, that also will work, but we'll need to hook those branches to this frame. So we're going to start off with, and you notice how this kind of has a top side and a bottom side to it? I'm going to be putting the top side out because that way it kind of has a little bit of a flare. So when I'm lining it up, I want it so it's just kind of right there at that bottom of the pot. And I'm going to go in and just take this twist tie, wrap it around the main stem of the branch, and twist it to the trellis. So there, now that should stay in place. Also, I should mention, I did put some used wet soil in the bottom of my planter just to create a little bit of weight so that this doesn't blow around outside. You could also use some rocks if you wanted to create weight to keep this stable on your porch. So blue spruce has typically been a little bit harder to find. I've heard there's been some issues with the blue spruce trees, so you may not be able to find the blue spruce, and you'll find that the fir trees, the Fraser firs, may be more available for you to use. So we're just going to go and wrap these around. If it sticks out a little bit, that's okay. And I really want to make sure that it's nice and covered, because we don't want to see through to see the pot. We want this to be a lot of evergreen showing. So once I go all the way around, I may find that I have to come through and put another layer of greens, but we'll figure that out once we get to that point. It's really hard doing twisties when you have gloves on, but these blue spruce are quite pokey. Now see how this one's a little tall? I'm going to put the next one where it's setting just a little bit lower. Some of these I'm not loving, so I'm just going to throw them off to the side and find ones that are looking better. One key thing to keeping your evergreens looking good through the winter is cold temperatures. So for us in Michigan, once we start getting the snow and the colder winter weather, they hold on better. Where if you're trying to do these and it's warm where you're at, sometimes that's kind of a recipe for disaster because they'll start dropping needles sooner. So if you are in a warmer area, this might be something you'd want to do closer to the holidays if you were wanting this specifically for the holidays on your front porch. All right, I'm going to give it a little spin and see what we've got. Obviously, too, you're going to have a back side to your gnome, so you would also look at it and maybe think, you know, if one side looks better than the other, that would be the side you'd have forward facing. Okay, so I'm just using these just kind of as the underneath, kind of the underskirt, let's say, for the gnome. And they're doing pretty good. Now I'm going to go ahead and use kind of the thicker, fuller, nicer looking branches for the top. Now, one thing, we don't have to worry about having a lot of evergreen here at this top portion because this gnome is going to have a hat and mittens. So this is going to really get all covered up. You're not going to see these tips of the branches because they too will be covered up by the hat that we're going to be putting on the gnome. I can't do this with gloves. As much as I want to, I just can't do it. I need my fingers. The nice thing with the greens I'm putting on right now, though, they're not as pokey. One nice thing with paddle wire is you can cut it to any length you want, where with these twist ties I'm using, they're kind of a set length. So if they're a little short, they can be a little bit harder to twist. All right, you'll see we slightly are overlapping those a little bit. All right, starting to tie together. All right, so now the next step, once you have your greens all the way placed around your container, it still looks maybe a little bit not put together at this point, but it's the next step that really pulls this full thing together and gives it the beautiful look. And that is by putting the accessories on. And that would be its hat and its mittens. So we have these cute little mittens that we made, and you can see we've got little wires going through them. So we'll use those wires to attach it to the evergreens. We also have the gnome hat, which we just went to our local fabric store and bought fleece to make these hats. And then we hot glued a little pom-pom on the end to kind of just add a little extra flair. So I'm going to go ahead and roll this hat back because I want to make sure that I'm covering up the top of the frame and then pulling the fabric over top of all of those cut ends. Might be a time I need my gloves here again. So you can see these guys are sticking out here a little bit. We're going to go ahead and just pull them, tuck them underneath the hat. Twist it around, pull the hat down as far as we can to get those all nice and covered and tucked in nicely. So I'm going to go ahead and give it a spin and see what she looks like from all angles. This would be a point where maybe if you have a bare spot, you feel like you need to add in a little bit more greens, you could tuck some in. But I think it's looking pretty good. All right, so now the next thing we're going to do, and you can give it a hug too if it feels like it's kind of like hanging out a little bit, give it a little hug and smush it all together. Let's get the hat looking right. Now I'm going to take those little gloves and they're just going to get attached to the evergreen branches. So I'm going to grab the wire. And if you have a dowel, we have also used a dowel where we'll stick a dowel through the tomato cage and glue one to one end of the dowel and glue to the other. So that's another way you can also attach the mittens if you would like. I'm just going to twist the wire around the branches. There's one. And the other. Thumbs up, right? Gotta have the thumbs up on the gloves. So let's see, maybe they're spread too far apart. Let me look and see. Yeah, I think they're way, like, you know, he's feeling like he's flying. So I'm gonna tuck those in, bring them in just a little bit more so that it doesn't feel like he's off, ready to fly away. I think they'll be good. All right, so the next step is, of course, he needs a cute little nose. So we've got just a small little ornament ball here. And now I got to try to find where the center is for the gloves. And we're going to call it right about here. We're going to take the wire and put his nose on, like so. And now this is the part where if you want to create a bearded gnome, you take some white of this snow stuff or flocking, and you can spray the evergreens. So I'm going to go ahead and do that and hope I don't make a mess, because this would be against all standards that Rod has here for the garden center. We're not allowed to make messes, and if we do, we have to pick them up. So I'm going to take this branch and I'm going to spray just kind of the ends of it here. So let's see how this works. All right, like so. And I'm going to go ahead and tuck that underneath the hat and secure it, and we're going to see how it lands and see what the beard looks like. I might have to remove the nose, we'll see. All right, let me turn it my way a minute. Ooh, the spruces are poking me every time. So I'm just not feeling like there's enough beard going on there. He needs more, he needs a little bit more color. So I'm going to actually take my flocking and just spray what's here and get a more of an even, more symmetrical looking beard. So let's see if I can do this all the while showing you. Now, obviously it's easy if I have to move the nose, because the nose isn't centered on his face. So that's something I can move if I need to. All right, let me take a look and see how it is. All right, definitely the nose is moving. So it may be recommended actually to, if you want to have a beard on your gnome, to put the bulb on after the fact. That way it's more centered. So there it is. Now I feel like I really have to look at him close because I need to get it centered. So I'm going to spin it around. And I'm not loving where his mittens are showing up, so I'm going to move those a minute as well. Trial and error is what makes things work. You try things, you figure out what you don't like, and you fix them. And that's what's easy when you're crafting or creating. There we go. Just a few minor adjustments, and I think he's looking so much better. If you have any questions or comments on creating your very own gnome planter, feel free to leave questions in the comments below. And if you are local here to Zeeland, Michigan, or want to take a drive, as I mentioned, we will put links below to sign up for our winter classes. Thanks for watching. I'm Heidi from Garden Crossings.